Hey guys, so in section 3.1 we're going to learn how to graph linear equations. So first we have to figure out what linear equations are, and then our goal is basically going to be to identify what intercepts are and what the zeros are of linear equations. So we need to define all these things and then learn how to find them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about linear equations. It's basically an equation that when you graph it, it forms a line. Okay, linear equation. Okay, forms a line, really important. Now, three cases that are not linear, right, are exemplified right here. Okay, so these three cases in this chapter are ones that you're going to find that are not examples of linear equations. So one here, if any variable has an exponent, it's not a linear equation. Okay, so if there's either an x squared or a y squared or an x cubed, y cubed, anything like that, it's not going to be linear. Also, if you multiply your variables together, so x times y there, it's not going to be linear. And the third case is when you have a variable in the denominator of a fraction. So that 4 over y, same thing if it was an x, it's not going to be linear. Okay? Now, when you graph lines, most of them are going to be slanted, right? They're going to be going this direction, or whatever, anything like that. But there are cases that you're going to get horizontal and vertical lines. Okay? In these special cases, I'm going to drive into your head, right? Because people miss it all the time. But horizontal lines have a y, but not an x. Okay? Most of our lines are going to have an x and a y in it. These special cases, when you have just one and not the other, are horizontal and vertical. So horizontal is when y is by itself. So y equals -6. All you do is go down 6, because the y, remember, is that axis, the vertical axis. So you go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you draw a horizontal line side to side through that y equals -6. Right? The reason for that is because y equals -6 always for these, right? You're always going down 6. It doesn't matter what x is, right? X can move side to side all you want, but y is always going to be -6. Similar for the vertical lines, it's got an x but no y, so x equals 5. You graph by going to the right 5. If it was -5, you'd go to the left 5. Right? And you draw a vertical line there. Right? This is obviously the x-axis. Okay? So you go up and down for an x equals 5. The reason for that is because you're over 5 at all points on this line, right? All over 5. Doesn't matter what y is. Y keeps changing, but x is always 5. Okay. Now, standard form. Standard form, this is just one way to write the equation of a line. You guys are probably most familiar with slope-intercept form. We're going to get to that in Chapter 4. So right now in Chapter 3, we're going to work with standard form. Standard form looks like this. Ax plus by equals c. Okay, so you have all your x's first, then your y's, and your constants are over on the right side by yourself. Okay, this a, b, and c are just numbers. So an example of this, really easy example, you see the 3x, so 3 is a, minus 2y, so -2 is your b, and c is 5. Okay, very simple. That's standard form. Now this one below, x equals -7, okay, if I asked you to give me a, b, and c there, remember a is the coefficient in front of the x. Okay, so your a here, the coefficient in front of the x, since there's nothing written, we assume there's an imaginary 1 there. Now b is the coefficient in front of y. All right, since y doesn't appear at all, b is going to be 0, and c is the constant that's on the right, so that's -7. Okay, so that would be a, b, and c for that equation. Now, intercepts are the points at which the line crosses each axis. So you have the x-axis and the y-axis. Okay, so the points in which those the line that we're graphing crosses those axes are called the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, let's just do the y-intercept in green. For the y-intercept, it's going to be crossing this y-axis. Right? What that means is x is always going to be equal to 0. Okay, so x equals 0 in that case. For an x-intercept, okay, it's crossing the x-axis. Right? You're not moving up and down at all, so that's going to be y equals 0. Okay, so for the y-intercept, right, you're not moving side to side at all, because it's going to be crossing this line somewhere. So x has to equal 0, and for an x-intercept, y has to equal 0. Let's show you what this looks like in some examples. So we're going to figure out if these are linear equations, and then write them in standard forms. This first one is a linear equation. Well, you look at this, and you see an x times a y. That's one of our three cases that is not linear, so the answer is no. And the second one, all right, we've got x and y, constant, no variables in the denominator, no multiplying variables, and no exponents. So it is good. The answer is yes. But now that it's yes, we're going to try to rewrite it in standard form. Okay, so for standard form, right, we need our ax plus by equals c. So we've got 3/4 minus y, because we're going to subtract that y over. So we have 3/4 x minus y equals 8. All right, now, once you get to this point, we want all three of our coefficients, a, b, and c, to be integers. Okay, so we want them to be whole numbers. And we need our first one, our a, to be positive. Okay, so it is positive, but right now it's a fraction. We don't want that fraction, so in order to get rid of the fraction, we multiply everything by 4. I remember to multiply all three things by 4, and you get 3/4 times 4 gives you 3x minus 4y equals 8 times 4 is 32. Just like that. Now, find the x and the y intercepts. Okay, so the x-intercept is just going to be where it crosses the x-axis right here at what looks like 1.5, so x equals 1.5. And the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which is right there, which looks like y equals 2. Just that easy to read those graphs. Now we're going to actually do some graphing. So we're going to use the x and the y-intercepts to graph this first one, number 3. Alright, so in order to find the y-intercept, right, for the y-intercept, remember that x equals 0. So what you do is what's called the cover-up method. So you cover up the 4x. I can't actually do it. I'm doing it with my finger, but you can't see it. Alright, so we've got cover up that 4x, and we're left with, basically what you're doing is plugging in 0 for x. So we've got 0 minus y equals 4. Alright, then we just need to solve for y. So that 0 doesn't do anything. Don't need to worry about it. But we have negative y equals 4. So what we need to do is we need to multiply both sides by -1 in order to cancel out our -1 there. So y equals 4 times -1 is -4. So our y-intercept is -4. Go down 4 and graph it. Okay, for the x-intercept, we're going to cover up the y, or basically plug in 0 for y. So we've got 4x minus 0 equals 4. That minus 0, again, not doing anything. That's why you're covering it up. So it's not helpful, so we just have 4x equals 4. Divide both sides by 4, and you get x equals 1. So write x equals 1, and connect the dots. Oops. Not a great line, but you get the idea. This next one, alright, graph y equals 2x plus 2. Now once again, we're going to cover up, find the x and y intercepts by covering up. So we've got, for the y-intercept, we've got y equals, plugging in 0 for x, so 0 plus 2, so y equals 2. Plot that point. And for the x-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for y. So 0 equals 2x plus 2. We're trying to get x by itself, so we're going to move it over. We've got negative 2x equals 2, divide by negative 2, and x equals -1. So there we go. We got our x and y intercepts. Connect the dots. And there's your line. Now this last one is just a quick review of these horizontal and vertical lines. Okay, so we've got one equation and two equations. Alright, so it's two separate equations. We'll look at the x equals 3 first. For x equals 3, remember that's going to be a vertical line because it's just x by itself, no y. So you go over 3, put your dot, and draw a vertical line through that. So x is always equal to 3. And the y equals -2. We're going down 2. Horizontal line through that because y is by itself and there's no x. And that is it.